Hello, hello. A couple months ago, I uploaded my infantry skates on Twitter, and I saw a lot of people liked it. So I thought, why not make a breakdown of this project, how it was designed, how it was modeled, and hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two. Maybe make a pair of skates of your own. Right here it is in Marmoset. Yeah, this is just the model, fully textured in the scene, and even have some animations. And I think that's really what kind of sold this project, was the animation, just seeing it move. And I think animation is just one of those things that will really just bring any lifeless object to life, just because it just brings so much expression. But even without the animations, there's plenty to look at, you know, from just the contrast in materials, the hard grainy plastic against some of the soft plastics, against, you know, some of these fabric gaiters or something that signifies gaiters, to even these top sort of leather top bits. And of course, I think the biggest thing that stands out is this section, which is just sort of internals or some sort of batteries or components, which I think really sells the whole look. Of course, if we hop over to ZBrush, you can see that I made it all in pretty much sculpting, which may sound insane, because it kind of is, of course. You know, sculpting a sci-fi boot in ZBrush. Yeah, I think the main thing that really sells it is just this sort of section, which is where all the details are crammed. And as you look away, as you move away from that section, you can see that there's less and less detail, and of course that's intentional. You don't want to have too much detail, otherwise the eye doesn't know where to look at, it doesn't know where to rest, and it all just becomes noise. Yeah, you can see I pretty much modeled everything down to the rail slides, down to this toe stopper, which comes out in the animation, all the way back to these cylindrical bits in the back. And it took me a couple iterations to get to this point. You can see if I go back to the very first version, it's literally just like a boot with a blade attached to it. And originally I was just gonna have this like slide back. Just slide back and then just rotate up and then slide up. And that's when I realized it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really look that pretty either. So I thought, why not just have the parts move in clusters rather than have it all animated in one piece. Plus it just makes more sense. Not that any of this project even makes that much sense to begin with. I mean, it's an ice skate. It's a hybrid ice skate that folds in on itself and slides up the ankle. How much sense can it really make? Who cares if it doesn't make that much sense either? And then from that point, I moved on to something that's a bit more closer to the end goal. Still very blobby, still very loose. That's because I didn't really know what kind of results I wanted, and that's kind of what's cool about ZBrush is it can you can really just explore with all these shapes before you get to a point that you want to commit and solidify those changes. And even then, you can still continue to explore and make big changes again, which you don't really get with you don't really get that benefit with other modeling packages. And then from that, a couple more iterations, and we get back to something that's a bit more closer to the final goal. Still very loose, still very sketchy, still very blobby, but no, that doesn't really matter as long as we can get an idea. Yeah, if you compare where I'm at, where I was at this stage versus the final sculpt, you can see just how much remains and just how much is changed or removed. Like I didn't really bother keeping this piece because I thought it didn't fit. And that's one of the things I've come to learn with design is you really gotta get the bad ideas out before you start coming up with good ideas. And if we come to Maya, you can see I remade this model in polygons. Basically, I modeled it a second time, which may seem like a lot of work, and yeah, it kind of is. But you know, I think that's, you know, you wanna put in that extra hard work because it'll show. I mean, it's not even really hard work. It takes time, yeah, but a lot of this is, I mean, once you have the model already, it doesn't really take that long to rebuild it. If I actually go, let's actually do that right now. If I pull out the high poly, oh my god, my scene's lagging. I can take maybe, let's see, this piece. So if we just take this piece, we could make it live. I'm just gonna use the quad draw tool just to make quick little geometry. And of course, you don't have to do this in Maya. You can do this in Max or Blender. It really, the tools don't really matter itself. It's more of the method. And from here, we can just start. I'm going to take live off. We can start just rebuilding this and just start extruding edges out. Really easy stuff. Anyone can do it. All it needs is just a little bit more polish. Everything from the fabrics down to every little hard components, down to even just to the treading. And of course, we can't forget the animation. Probably the second most important part of this project. So I think one of my favorite hard surface animations is probably the helmet animation from Dead Space 2. I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking, God, that looks so fucking cool. And even now, I think it aged pretty well. And I sort of wanted to have that sort of Dead Spacey vibe with this animation, just having like all of these like little pieces moving together in what seems like unity, and that's kind of what I wanted to get out of this animation. And with that, the animation process for this was, I'd say, pretty unorthodox, pretty unorthodox approach. If we go over to this other scene, you can see these are some of the earlier iterations I had, and I was already animating these before they were even done, just so I can get a feel for what I wanted, so I can design around that. You don't want to design and then animate something and then realize that these shapes that you made, they kind of don't work with your animation. So I thought, why not animate and sculpt at the same time and go back and forth, and that's exactly what I did. Sounds pretty crazy, but I mean, it worked. I mean, it works. I would just bring in the decimated model and start ripping some of these meshes apart and start keying them. And of course, I went through 2 separate versions before I got to the one that I liked. Like I said, you want to get your bad ideas out first before you can start producing your good ideas. And there's not really a trick to animating these. It's really just about breaking each piece down one by one and just animating a chain of events. This is just rotating and translating into this piece, and these pieces are just descending down while these pieces are sliding in, and then this piece of course is sliding on top of course in the final one kind of animates outwards before sliding over on that groove. But you know, be loose, be messy, and we can always clean up later, and there's going to be plenty of time for cleanup. Believe me, there was so much cleaning up that went on with this project. And then it's just about basic ease in, ease out animation principles. You can even see over here that the mesh is just clipping in on itself, but you know, that can be our secret. No one has to know. And of course, what really finishes this animation is just having this sort of wobble sort of effect. And to do that, that's really just about, I'm going to change the pivot here, setting a key, and when it just trying to imagine where the momentum shifts, and over here I feel like it would kind of snap a bit down, and then come back up to settle a bit. Then from here, the momentum would start being, because of this piece, it's going to start being pushed forward. So have that inertia kind of continue. And then, if you know overlapping action, you would know that the inertia, there's a follow through before it settles back. And I'm being really messy, but that's really just what it comes down to, just judging where, and of course also just to start adding rotational values. And there's no rig setup for this either, it's just all keys, all just polys that I'm keying. Pretty rough, but hopefully you guys get the idea.